So hi guys, my name is Izzy. I'm a sporadic YouTuber. So I'm here to do my stats for 2023. I know I've been AWOL from the bookie tubes. I'm also freezing. I have a heater going. I'm wrapped up in blankets. I don't like winter. So anyway, I'm just going to get into it, shall we? This is going to be a very long video. So if you're not into it, that's cool. You can go. I'll try to link down below in the description, like sections. If you want to jump around, you can. It's really, this video is not going to be that interesting. It's just my book stats, which I don't know if anyone actually cares about, especially since I've been AWOL, so like y'all probably don't even care about me, which is fine. I'm going to start with just the basics overall Goodreads stats, and then I'll get into like more deeper stats from my spreadsheet. So yeah, and along the way we'll compare the two and all the fun stuff. So in 2023, my reading goal was to read 142 books. If you follow me on Instagram, you already know I read a lot. If you follow me on Goodreads, you know. I read 303 books. So, yeah, I smashed it. I didn't expect that. So the reason I succeeded so much, which we'll get into probably when I make a goals video, I'm sure I'll talk about this again, but the reason I succeeded so much was because my lifestyle changed drastically. I don't want anyone to ever look at my stats. This is like a disclaimer, just straight across the board, because I hate when people do this. My stats aren't meant to be braggy at all. So I don't want you to look at my stats and get discouraged. Like, oh, I only read like 12 books last year. I only read 1 book last year. I read 1 page last year. I don't care. Like, and you shouldn't either. You shouldn't care about what someone else is reading. You do you, and if it works for you, it works for you. Like, everybody's lifestyle is different, and I don't think anyone takes that into consideration. Like, yes, I'm proud that I read 303 books, because I read some really great books, as you'll see in my stats. You'll see my ratings and all that stuff. But yeah, this is all like just stats for me, because I like to know what I'm reading, how I'm reading, all the things. So yeah, my pages read this year, it annoys me that it's not like a nice even number, but I read 99,687 pages, almost 100,000 pages, which is like double what I read like last year, I think. It's a lot of pages. My shortest book according to Goodreads and my longest book was The Ogre's Pet was my shortest. Ironically, these 2 books, one was a 5-star and one was a like 2 or 3-star. The Ogre's Pet, didn't enjoy it, don't recommend it. It was short though, so it was only 50 pages, so at least it was only this much of my time wasted. And the longest book was 704 pages. That's the 3rd book in the Crown of Feathers series. That was actually the longest series I read, page count wise. And I did read that whole series last year and loved it. It was a really good series, really underrated. My average book length was 329 pages, which I think is like an average page for a novel, page count for like a novel anyway. So makes sense that it was around that. Now, my most shelved and my least shelved book, these make sense to me as well. Bound to the Alien King is like the 4th book, I think, in a series. This book, only 22 people shelved it, but I think this book is shelved really wrong on Goodreads for some reason, because I had to go in and manually add it, even though I read it on my Kindle and usually it does like the update. But for some reason, there's been a glitch with this book. So I don't know if it has anything to do with like how the author shelved it, or I don't know if they have any control over that actually, but or how Goodreads is shelving it. But it is a sequel to a series, so I don't know what's going on with it, but it doesn't surprise me only 22 people have shelved it. Also, it's an indie published book, so that could be why as well. But the most shelved book, again, not surprising, was The Cruel Prince. I don't really read book talk books anymore, like suggested books. I do read some books that are also popular on book talk, like The Cruel Prince, but I read The Cruel Prince because it came in a Owlcrate book, and one of my things I wanted to do this past year was to read more of those books because I was like hoarding them and not reading them, and that was one of like the older ones on my shelf. And it makes sense that it's like shelved so high, or by so many people, because it is really popular. The Cruel Prince, the first book was just okay. I liked the series as a whole was good. The first book is just okay for me. I know I have a friend who really didn't like it. My average rating for 2023 according to Goodreads was a 4.2. Again, not surprising. I've been picking more books that I like. I also rate really high. Like I've been picking more books that I know that I'll like, is what I meant to say. And I rate books really high anyway. Usually if I enjoy your book, you get a 4 from me. So the highest rated book again is the least shelved book, so that makes sense as well, because it is a sequel and it's a 4th book, so people are really enjoying it, and that's Bound to the Alien King. I like that series. It's pretty good. I think I rated it a 4. I think that's it for Goodreads. I think my first review for the year and my last review, that's kind of pointless because I don't really review books as much as I wish I did. I'm really bad with being like, hey, I loved this. It's usually like a one-line blurb, which I'm going to try to do more in the new year. I want to do more like one-liner blurbs. All right, now I'm going to awkwardly stare behind you because that's where my other spreadsheet is. So we're gonna get more into the nitty-gritty now, so if that's enough for you with my stats and you're good, then good seeing you. If you want more in-depth stuff, let's get into it. So anyway, let's start with genre. If past Izzy could look back on this, she would laugh her ass off. The genre that I read the most is not surprising to me, current me, but past me would lose her mind. The genre I read the most was romance, and then second in line fantasy. This is not surprising to me at all. And the same goes with pages. Pages by genre was like the same graph, basically, like the same pages. So these two graphs were very much similar. But yeah, I read like 57% romance and 30%, almost 31% fantasy. So those are my big genres. I don't know what my smallest one is, probably poetry or classics. I only read one classic, so that's probably it. But yeah, romance was the majority of what I read, and it continues to be like a favorite genre now. So format, the majority of what I read was ebook. The second largest category, audio. Like I said, I listen to so many audiobooks now because of my new job. It changes the way that I listen to things. Ebook makes sense. I now travel with my Kindle because you can bring so many more books with you. It's just so much easier, and I can always read on my phone if I need to. If I'm stuck in a line somewhere, I'll read on my phone. So yeah, and again, past Izzy would be really surprised with that because she didn't embrace ebooks until way later. So yeah, the majority of what I read wasn't physical books, which is crazy. Past Izzy would lose her mind. Now, if we look at the physical versus digital, again, like I said, only 13% were physical books. The rest was almost 87% were digital books, ebooks, audiobooks, like crazy. And then if you look at my reading versus listening, because pages read would be ebook as well, because I visually read, and then the read via audiobook it's almost half and half. It's close, but I read more pages than I listened. But yeah, page length matches what Goodreads said. Basically, this graph matches that pretty spot on. The majority of the books that I read were in that average novel length, that 300 to 399 range. When you look at years published, this one was not surprising but cool to see, and I'm excited to see what the new year holds. But the majority of the books that I read were published, well, not this year because now it's a new year, but were published in 2023, which I think is crazy. That's really crazy to me. And the majority of the books that were published were new books. I didn't read that many backlist titles. Sorry, my coffee maker is beeping, which is telling me that my coffee's no longer good. I don't care. Coffee maker can't tell me what's wrong. The oldest book I read was the classic. I read Phantom of the Opera. When we look at publishers, I'm hoping that I track this better in the new year, but the majority of the books I read were indie published, which again makes sense because I read a lot of ebooks. I read a lot of romance, indie romance authors. So that makes sense to me. The second largest would be Macmillan, and then Penguin coming in hot in the back. But yeah, not surprising that indie is pretty high up there. Not surprising at all. So the way I acquired my books, this is a little because I wasn't very good at tracking this, but in the new year, hopefully I track it better. So, sorry, the litter box is rotating. So a lot of the books, the majority of the books I read were on Kindle Unlimited, which is something that I subscribe to, because if you read ebooks, it's as much as I hate giving money to the Bezos monster, Kindle Unlimited is a good deal if you read ebooks a lot. Like, I definitely make my money's worth, get my money's worth, because I read so much. But if you don't read a lot, then it's really not worth it. But if you do, yeah, which it was 31% of my reading was Kindle Unlimited books. And then Owlcrate was a big one. Just random purchases was a big one. Again, this location one isn't really accurate, but the majority of the books that I did get quite a few books off of Libby. And then Kindle Unlimited was another one, like I said, that was a big where I got books. And then the Kindle Store, which again, this makes sense. Libby is where I listen to audiobooks. Kindle Store, and there was like an Audible. I listened to like 1 or 2 Audible books because they weren't available in Libby. But yeah, Libby is where I listen to audiobooks. Kindle Unlimited is where I read, and Kindle Store is where I read, so digitally, so yeah. So yeah, my ratings, again, this matches very perfectly with Goodreads. I rated 160 of the books 4 stars, I believe, so quite a few of them. And then again, 112 were 5-star reads, which is like a lot. Only 26 were 3, which some of those might be different than how I feel now. I didn't rate anything 1 star this past year. I only rated 6 books 2 stars. I don't even remember what those 6 books were, but yeah. So again, my rating matches very much with what Goodreads said, so makes sense. So when we're looking at my books per month, pages per month, these kind of match up pretty well. So I'm just gonna look at the books per month one, but they match up almost spot for spot. Like they're a little bit different, but they match pretty well. My best month last year was August. I don't remember why, because it's not like I had a readathon. I don't think I had a readathon going on that month. I wasn't on vacation or anything, so it wasn't anything like, yeah, I don't know why August was the best month, but it was, like by a landslide. I read 43 books in August. That's more than a book a day, so I don't know what was happening in August. And like I said, like it matches with the pages read. I read over 1,300 pages. Or 1,300, yeah. Over 13,000 pages. So, not 100, 13,000 pages. So, yeah, August was my best year, which makes sense. May was actually pretty decent. April, pretty slow because that was like finals weeks and stuff. And then June was like the aftermath of graduating. But yeah, August was like my best month. I think my worst month was September. I think I was on vacation in September, but I don't remember. But I still read like 16 books in September, so like it's been crazy. It's been crazy, guys. The author gender that I read the most of, hopefully I track this better in the new year. I'm really bad with this too. The author gender that I read the most of was female. I would say that makes sense because I read a lot of romance, and not that men don't write good romance, but yeah, I still read 23 men. 3 books that were written by both genders. 4 books that I had no clue who I didn't want to assume gender. And then 5 books that were, and again, this is like, I'm really bad at tracking this, so this could be completely wrong. But 5 books by non-binary authors as well. Age group wise, again, this is not surprising. The majority of the books that I read were adult romances, and then YA second in line. This used to be flipped, like 100% flipped. YA used to be the most read, then middle grade, then adult. Like adult was small, but this has changed drastically over the years. Diversity I didn't really track in the new year. Like I stopped tracking because I don't like the way this graph that I have, this survey that I have, I don't like the way it tracks diversity. The new one that I just got, it tracks it a lot better. I do read a lot of LGBTQIA plus books. That is always a huge chunk of the diverse books that I read, but I am queer myself, so like that's not surprising. Now series, I don't know if I tracked this that well, but the majority of the books that I read were series. Again, this is not surprising because a lot of the books that I read in romance, a lot of them end up being parts of series. Even if they're not, even if they could be standalones, they're still part of the whole world a lot of times. But the majority of the books that I read were series. Now in the new year, I'm tracking my actual series, and I hope to actually make a video about my actual series and what needs finished and what needs completed, and we can get into that. So anyway, yeah. Standalones were only like 30% standalones. Again, not surprising. Last graph, we don't really need to get into, but whatever, I'll go through it because I think it's the last one on this side, and then we'll get into acquisitions briefly. Like I said, this video is very long, I'm so sorry. This is just like if it was previously on my TBR or if I just added it to my TBR. This graph makes sense if you looked at what I read last year, like year wise, like when it was published, because the majority of the books that I read were 2023s. So it makes sense that the majority of the books on this list were added that year, were added last year. So I'm going to just briefly get into acquisitions because I didn't track very well this past year. I'm not gonna lie to you, I did not track very well at all. This is only physical books, and this is incomplete graphs as well, because since I did read a lot of books that I acquired in 2023, there are quite a few books that like I acquired and then I read and then forgot to mention that I acquired them, if that makes sense. Like I forgot to put them on my graph that I acquired them because it was just like, oh, immediately read and completely forgot that I, you know, acquired them this year. So anyway, let's get into it. So overall, the acquisitions, again, the biggest genre, the two biggest genres, romance, fantasy. Not surprising. Non-fiction being a category acquired is interesting considering I only read like one or two Any? I know I read some non-fiction last year, but what did I read that was non-fiction? Like one, maybe two. Yikes. So yeah, that's kind of surprising that that's a big category that I, you know, got. But yeah, romance being a big genre, fantasy being a big genre, that makes sense. Age group that I acquired, the majority of the books are, I can't even see this graph. My brain is like, what? The majority of the books that I acquired were adult, again, and the second largest YA. Again, makes sense with the way I read. Again, this is only physical formats. The majority of the books that I got were hardcover and then paperback. Like they were very close, very close. Mass market paperbacks were like about 6%. I like a mass market paperback. Some people don't. I like they're so much easier to like tote around. Like they don't look nice on the shelf. I'll give you that, but like they're so much easier to tote around than like a big heavy hardcover, or, you know. I didn't track cost or any of that. I did track publisher if you're interested in this graph. This graph is Penguin is the biggest one, which is surprising. Penguin is the biggest. Lots of little random publishers. Indie was a big chunk as well. Indie was about 17-18%, so that's a big chunk. Acquisition by status. Again, this graph is not accurate because a lot of the Owl Crate and Rainbow Crate books I didn't put on my acquisitions graph because I kept forgetting. purchases in general, like sometimes I do this, but the majority of the books were just purchased just on their own. So new and used was about 50-50, which is not surprising again for me. I do go to book sales sometimes, and it's like a fill the bag kind of book sale, so a lot of these were probably from that. Purchased versus free, 74% basically were purchased, and free was like 30%. That's it. I think that's all of the acquired stuff. Now in the new year, I do want to track like cost and what I'm spending better, because I'm curious more than anything. I don't know if I'm going to share the spending stuff with you because it might be cringy. It might be bad, but we'll see. We'll see if I track it better. So yeah, that is it. That is my huge, annoyingly long stat video. If you stayed to the end, give me a thumbs up, or give me any kind of emoji. I don't care. Give me a cute emoji or a smile. Or if you don't have emojis, then say, hey, I did make it to the end of your ridiculously long video. So thank you for watching. If you did, I will see you in the new year. Well, it is the new year. I will see you in the next video and all the things. My eye is twitching. I love you guys. Peace. I'm out. Goodbye.